Da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-dum. What does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review. And today I'm very excited to check out the DC deck building game Teen Titans. This is for 2 to 5 players, ages 15 plus. It'll take about 45 minutes to play. And in the DC deck building game, you're going to be taking control of various different superheroes that are from the Teen Titans comic, I think. I don't know anything about the comic. And you're going to be building your deck up with villains and heroes and equipment and trying to defeat supervillains, then add the supervillains to your deck, and eventually gain the most points at the end of the game. Now, this is both a standalone game that you can play completely by yourself, or you can add this with other games from the DC deck building series, which there are quite a few of them. So, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to tell you what I think about it as a standalone game, because I've never played it as an expansion, and I'll tell you what my thoughts are. So, let's check it out. Alright then, we're going to take a look at what should again said of the DC deck building game, the Teen Titans expansion, but it's also a standalone game. And since I don't have any of the versions of the game, I'm going to be focusing primarily on this as a standalone game, even though I will mention what is new in this. So first and foremost, we're going to handy dandy rule booklet. It's 15 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples. It's very, very well done. This is, I believe, their third big box expansion, so they've got it pretty much perfected down. I think they've made like 8 of these kinds of games. Also on the back, they have a really helpful turn sequence for when you're first starting the game if you're new to deck builder. So big fan of the rule booklet. Huge thumbs up on that. So in DC deck builder, what are you going to be doing? Well, you're going to be trying to gain the most points by taking control of one of these superheroes right here, which will each give you a unique power, and defeating villains, collecting heroes and superpowers and equipment to fight with you, and then eventually taking out supervillains, which will give you more points and really useful special abilities. The points are listed on the bottom left of the card, so this one is worth 1 point. Some will be worth more, some will give you points at the end of the game based on X. You'll get X amount of points, so X might be, for every card you have that's over 6, you might get 1 point. So your scores will vary from game to game depending on which cards you collect. So, when you first start the game in your typical deck builder, you're going to get 2 starting cards, which will be these punches and these vulnerabilities. Punches are going to give you +1 power. Power is the currency in the game that you're going to need to spend to buy other cards, and it's listed down here on the bottom right. Pretty self-explanatory there. Vulnerability are just going to be blank cards that are just going to do absolutely nothing, and you're eventually going to want to trash. They're essentially just going to clog your hand. So when you set it up, you're going to shuffle all the cards except for the vulnerabilities, the powers, the kicks, which are over here, which is a superpower, which will get you +2 power, which you can purchase whenever you want. It costs 3. And then the weaknesses, which are going to essentially like curses from, say, Dominion or something like that, which is going to clog your hand, but in addition, it's going to give you a -1. A lot of attacks will give you those, unfortunately. Then, last but not least, you're going to have your villains, your super villains over here. You're going to start off, at least in this version, with Blade Wilson here. And as you can see, it's going to cost 8 to take him down. But if you can take him down, you'll be able to put him in his deck. And then he has what's called an ongoing ability. So if you're new, if you're looking for stuff on the expansion, the big addition in this expansion are ongoing ability cards. And I'll talk about more about those in a second. So his ability is, once he gets back in your hand, at the start of each turn, you may draw until you have 5 cards in hand. Because a lot of these cards that other people will play on you will force you to potentially discard cards. So that's a great one to have out there. Also, some of the cards will say, hey, if you discard a card, then you can do this. So if you discard that, then you'll always have something you discard in order to sync up and kind of combo up. So when you're setting up the game, you're going to have 5 cards out just like this. There's 5 main kinds of cards. You're going to have heroes, locations, superpowers, equipments, and villains. They will do various different things, and a lot of them will sync together. So you're trying to figure out what you really want to put in your deck. You're also going to put the remainder of the cards into a big stack over to the left over here, which you can barely see. Now I'm going to go back to the ongoing cards for those of you interested in the expansion, show you some of my favorite cards from the deck, what they do. So for instance, this one, ongoing defense. You may discard this card from play to avoid an attack. So normally you might have an attack, it might say draw a weakness or lose one of your favorite cards, or something like that. You can say, all right, I'm going to discard this, and you don't have to do that. Now, when you play an ongoing card, you're just going to play it over to the side, like so. So just go in front of you right here to show everybody that you have that out. And then normally when you would discard all of your cards after you play and buy and whatnot, you would leave this card out here, sort of like a ship in, sort of like the stations, I believe, in, Star Realms. Continuing onward, we have a villain card. This is one of my personal favorites. It only costs 4 to purchase, and you may discard this card from play at any time. If you do, you're going to gain +2 power. So when you get this out, this is essentially $2 sitting on the table, ready for you when you need $2 to potentially get a super villain or a really good card. Next, we have a villain. This one's going to cost 7, so it's a very, very powerful card. +2 power, and choose a foe. Gain control of each ongoing card that foe controls. Now, you're like, wow, that's overpowered. But the key is, you're just going to gain control over those cards. So you can essentially spend other people's cards. You are going to have to give them back the cards. Now, you might also notice it's going to give you 2 victory points. That's a really good card to get, especially early game, because you'll be able to take out other people's ongoing abilities, use them for yourself, and then give them back to them. Last but not least, we have the superpower, the Azeroth. I don't know much about Teen Titans. You may discard this card from play. If you do, put a card with cost 4 or less from your discard pile into your hand. So this is a really good one as well, because you're going to be able to put anything, as long as it costs 4 or less, back into your hand when you need it. But likewise, somebody might play that match. They might take this from you and do that as well. So that's the ongoing abilities. Really cool. I'll talk more about that when we get to the pros and the cons. So getting back to the characters, you're going to pick one of the characters, and there's Red Robin, Beast Boy, Kid Flash, whole bunch here, and they're all going to have their own unique superpower that only you will be able to do. So once during each of your turns, if you control 2 or more villains, put a superpower from your discard pile in your hand. That's really useful. You got Superboy. Once during each of your turns, if you control 2 or more different superpowers, +1 power to draw a card. So things like that. You are going to want to kind of build your deck generally around your superpower as well. So if you're Superboy and you say, oh, there's a piece of equipment out here that costs 3, but there's a superpower out here that costs 3, you're like, yeah, I kind of think I want to get the superpower because it might sync up a little bit better with with your superhero power. So let's go over how the game is played. If you're used to a deck builder, nothing fancy here. Oh, back to the supervillains. I did want to mention one thing about those before we continue onward and I forget. When someone purchases them, what's going to happen is they're going to take this, put it into their discard pile. You're going to reveal a new one. Then what they will say on there is there is a first appearance. So when they first appear, something's going to happen. So for instance, Brother Blood. Each player puts a villain they control, have in hand, or in their discard pile into the lineup. So essentially, if you only had like one really good villain in your hand, and this guy comes out, you're going to have to lose that, unless, of course, maybe you had that ongoing card we mentioned earlier that would avoid that. This one's going to cost 11, and it's going to gain you, wowzas, 6 victory points. Also, his special ability, when he does get into your hand, is you may gain all the villains in the lineup and put one in your hand, or choose +3 power. So very useful special abilities on these guys. You really want to focus on getting villains, or super villains, I should say, when you can. So, back to the gameplay itself. Pretty simple. You're going to draw 5 cards, like so, and then you're going to see what you got. So we got +1, +2. Oh no, we only got +2, so we can afford something that costs 2. And we're looking around the board. Nothing costs 2 except for, the superpower costs 3 over here. So we can get the Shapeshift, which actually for Superboy is probably an ideal card. +1 power. This card has all card names. It is also a hero, villain, equipment while you own it. So this is a very useful card. Very, very useful card, but you need to be able to combo it with other things. So then, after your turn is over, you would replace that card right there, and then the next player would go. So we'll just go through a few more hands, see what happens. So we now have +5 power. That's great. Let's take a look at the board. This Cloak of Raven, that one looks pretty good. Let's see what that one does. +2 power and an additional +1 power for each different superpower you control. So this is great because we hope to have a lot of superpowers as per our Superboy special ability. So this is a no-brainer. We would definitely buy that one. We would put all of our stuff into our discard pile. Our turn would be over. We'd replace a new card. And just a little tricks of the trade. The card that I probably would go for next would be to get a kick in there. I would love to get, a lot of different superpowers going on in there, see if we can sync it up. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just see what we get. We got a punch. We got our 3 vulnerabilities again, which really stinks for this turn, but you gotta think about later turns because that'll be really useful. So this turn we might actually not be able to do anything, but I bet you next turn we're going to be able to do something pretty sweet. So let's see, we got +1 power, +1 power, +1 power. So we would have 4 power, 6 power, 7 power. So at this point we would have 7 power. So we could, we could buy this and we could buy something else that costs 4. So we could then start purchasing really good stuff, and we could really start syncing up our deck. But anywho, you're going to continue to go until either all these cards run out or until all these cards run out, at which point you will tally up your points to see who has the most points. Whoever has the most points is going to be the winner of the DC Deck Building Games Team Titans. And that in a nutshell is how the game is played. Alrighty then, the DC Deck Building Game Team Titans from Cryptozoic. What are my final thoughts? Let's go to the pros, let's go to the cons. Before we do that, I do want to mention two things. First and foremost, I know absolutely zero about the Team Titans. You know, I like superheroes and I like superpowers and all that kind of stuff, but I know absolutely squadouche about these characters. Also, I'm a huge fan of deck building games, so one of my favorite types of games. So take that for what you will before we get to the pros and cons, which is now. So on the cons side, if you played other deck building games, this is not trying to reinvent the wheel. There's no crazy out there new mechanisms where you're going to be like, whoa, I can do that? That's completely different. It doesn't try to reinvent the wheel here. Also, I've heard this complaint before from other people, and I agree with it. The theme and the game seem a little bit disjointed. Like you're getting superheroes, and you're getting supervillains, and you're getting equipment, and you're getting locations, and it doesn't all quite make sense thematically, which is going to turn off some people, but not to the point that I feel like most people are going to really dislike the game. I did want to mention that, though. Another con that I have with it is that the box insert, while it's very nicely done, it has one compartment where if you put cards down there, you have to bend the cards to get them out. It's this one right here, and it really bugs the heck out of me, because I'll put cards down there, I'm like, oh no, now I have to bend the cards to get them back out. But other than that, the box insert is pretty nicely done. I'm struggling here, if you couldn't tell. Yeah, that's pretty much what I got on the DC Deck Building Teen Titans game. I was expecting myself to enjoy this game. I really was. However, I was not expecting myself to enjoy this game as much as I did. I love this game. I want to explore the DC deck building system more. I want to mix in Lord of the Rings. I want to see if there's a way to mix in hockey. I want to play with all the other expansions and play a mega game. I love the mechanisms. I love how smooth and streamlined this game feels. The ongoing system is very cool. As I mentioned in the middle part, it reminds me of the battle stations or the ships or whatever they're called in Star Realms, and I like that. That you just have these cards here just waiting for you to utilize them. And they're actually a little bit better than the ones in Star Realms because they're there. Most of the time people can't attack them. So they're there for you to decide when you want to use them. And I like them. So I guess they're kind of like the Heroes expansion there. But anywho, back on topic. I like the artwork. The artwork is very, very nicely done. Even though I didn't know the characters, I still liked looking at them and looking at their names and all that sort of stuff. It made me actually want to know more about the characters, which I guess is a really good thing. Box insert I mentioned, very well done, aside from the little part where you have to get to it and you try to get it out and you're like, ah! Rule booklet. Fantastically done rule booklet. Granted, they've done like 6 or 7 games that are very, very similar, so I would expect them to have fine-tuned this. But this is top to bottom, fantastic rule booklet, fantastic artwork, like the streamlined mechanics. It's just a fantastic game, and I like this game so much that I could eventually see this in combination with, Star Realms and Trains, eventually ousting Dominion for me, potentially. I don't know if I go that far, but man, I like this game a lot. I really wish I wasn't talking about the game, and I wish I was playing it. It plays good with 2, it plays good with 5. That's another thing that's big on the pros for me personally, is that it plays up to 5 players, whereas a lot of other deck builders play less than that. Like you take your Star Realms, without anything else, it only plays 2 players. Dominion only plays 4 players. Granted, there's easy modification to fix that, but still, straight out of the box, this plays 5. Trains, I believe, only plays 4. So this, playing up to 5 players, for me personally, is a big addition as well, even though 5 players can drag just a little bit, but not too bad, because other people are purchasing it, so it's a little bit negligible. Overall, though, just ignore everything I say, focus on this DC deck building game. Teen Titans is fantastic. You need to check it out if you like deck building games. If you're thinking about getting this in expansion, go ahead, pull the trigger on it. The ongoing cards are cool. If you like the Teen Titans, just get this game. One of my favorite games that I've played in a good deal of time. That is the DC deck building game, Teen Titans. Big thumbs up from me. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to click on the subscribe button down below in the comments below. Let me know if you could meet one superhero and date them. Who would it be? Ooh, for me personally, I think I gotta go with Mystique, man. Mystique would be awesome to date. It's like, you know what? Today I would really like to date a blonde. And then tomorrow I want a brunette. And then on Thursday I want a dirty girl. I want you to dress like a dirty, trashy, and then maybe the next day, maybe if you want like an old lady, she can dress like an old lady. Maybe I'm just weird. What superhero would you want to date, though, in the comments below? And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.